All right, guys, me and Uncle Ray are back at it, out here working on Chaos Theory, and we got a new transmission, so I'm going to introduce you guys. So in the last video, we were having some transmission issues. Don't kill yourself under there, Ray. Ray's under there taking the drive shaft loose. But we were having transmission issues, and I made a comment I was going to buy a TCI level 4 transmission. Well, one of you guys reached out to me and offered to build me an even better transmission for the same price. So Dave at Wheels Up Racing, he actually built this transmission for me, brought it down here last weekend personally. So what we got here, we got a stock case Turbo 400 with an ATI bell housing, SFI approved bell housing. We've got, I don't know if you guys can see it, my flashlight's not working, but we've got an ATI upgraded front, wait, I can't think of what it's called, ATI upgraded input shaft. We've also got a BTE upgraded intermediate shaft. We've got a ATI Wicked Quick 1+2 billet internal Transbrake that will allow us to leave in either first or second gear. There's a bunch of other stuff too. Billet forward hub, I think is what it's called. He done a bunch of stuff to this, guys. That's the bottom line. He can build you one too if you want him to. There's his shop's name and phone number right there. I'd reach out to him if you guys want to build one. So for those of you wondering what's up with the pink polka dots, I actually made a joke when he first started building this for me and said I wanted it to be purple with pink polka dots. So he actually stopped on his way down here and bought pink polka dots to stick on it. Now I said, you know, I'm going to leave them on there just for the hell of it. Why not? But Ray brought up a good point that once this thing heats up, these are plastic and it's probably going to melt them and stick them to the case. So we're probably going to peel them off before we put it in. So that's what we're doing today, guys. We're trying to stick this in. We do have a few issues though. The big issue being we're waiting on our UMI cross member. UMI sending us a Turbo 400 cross member with a built-in drive shaft loop, and it's looking like it may be a few weeks before it gets here. They're also sending us some subframe connectors. We're finally going to put those on the car, and I don't know, guys, the big thing is we still need a drive shaft. So the whole reason we're doing this today, we're going to pull the Turbo 350 out, put the new 400 in with the JEGS converter, and we're just going to try to level it out with the trans jack so we can measure and I can order my drive shaft. Now the drive shaft is going to be a 3.5-inch aluminum drive shaft with 1350 U-joints front and back, billet yoke from PST. Uh-oh, what we got?
You got one missing and one...
Oh, the washer's spread out?
Yeah, and one's missing.
I've got some extras here.
Okay.
I got a bag of them over here on the shelf. They sent a bunch of extras, Quick Performance did. But yeah, guys, so we get this thing in, measure for the drive shaft, get that ordered, and then we're hoping that maybe the cross member will get here about the same time as the drive shaft. Once that's all here, the car will be running again. We'll have a transmission that should hold close to 1,500 horsepower, and which we're never going to make that. We'll have a drive shaft that's supposed to hold up to 1,200, so we should be good after that. But that's a rundown of what we're doing today. I'm probably not going to film much of it, probably just some intermediate stuff here and there, because I just want to get this thing out and get the new one in, and it is freaking hot, guys. Yeah, I don't know what you guys can see, but there's transmission fluid everywhere. That's one of the things I'm hoping to cure is I've tried everything, guys. I cannot get this Turbo 350 to stop leaking. It's not major leaks, it's just little leaks.
This is the best way to make one quit leaking.
Yeah.
Take it out, throw it away.
Yeah, drain all the fluid out and then throw the whole transmission away. But I've not had any luck with it, guys. I've replaced every seal in the damn thing twice. But yeah, hopefully this Turbo 400 don't leak like this. So that'll be one less thing. We've been, up until now, about every 2 runs, we've been reaching under here and wiping the pan off so we don't drip on the track. Ray said this is the absolute easiest transmission he's ever pulled in his life. He said this wasn't a problem at all.
You're the one over there cussing.
I was not. I was not.
Oh, my knuckles.
Oh, my knuckles. We got a little issue. So these are the stock bell housing bolts. This thick flange. So on all these, I mean, believe it or not, that's all that was going through on the stock bell housing. If you go over here and look, the way it's designed, it's thick on the bolts. So we're good on those. But the problem is the bottommost bolts. Yeah, the bottommost bolts down here, the flange is even thicker. See how this is? So I had to go buy some longer bolts. And over here on this side, I mean, that's fine on this side. Over on the other side, there's not enough clearance to get the
Nothing works.
yeah.
Yes and no.
Yeah, there's not enough clearance around this bolt to get the socket on there, so we're gonna have to grind on the bell housing just a little bit, just to make some clearance right here so you can get the socket on the bolt once you put it in. So we're gonna get that taken care of. Then we're gonna take our transmission lines, our soft lines anyway, and go ahead and bolt them to here and shove this bad boy up in there. So we'll just take our little carbide bit on our drill here and massage a little bit. This won't take but about 5 seconds. Alright, yep, that is golden. Good job, Ray, good job. What's going on now is we're having to move the transcooler. Before, you remember we had it mounted right here where the catalytic converter would normally go, but the problem is we got subframe connectors coming and there's not going to be enough room to get the subframe connectors in here with the transcooler where we got it. So we're going to relocate the transcooler all the way to the back of the car under the hump. So for now we're just, you know, dropping it where it's at, but we're gonna have to take some stuff loose in the car. I got to slide under the carpet to get a wrench on the top of these bolts that are holding it. So alright, so we got our transcooler out from under the passenger side of the car, and she's gonna go right here under the rear hump. We're just we're gonna mount it right there. I mean, pretty simple. Like, here's the back bumper. Like, you may actually even be able to see it hanging down a little bit in the back after we mount it, but that should work. We'll put the transcooler here. We'll run a little short piece of AN line, and then it'll go to 3/8 aluminum hard line. We'll run that all the way back up to the transmission, and we'll have you know, the original AN lines coming off the transmission. That way, whenever we drop the transmission in the future, we don't have to reach up in there and take the lines loose from the transmission. We can just unscrew them from the hard lines up by the subframe area. So I'm not gonna bore you guys with this whole process. Just telling you what we're gonna do, and I'll show you after it's done. We got our warped ass dipstick tube. We're trying to, guys, when you get a fresh dipstick tube seal, it is a nightmare getting these things in with them in the car. So what we did is we put some Vaseline on it, and plus our dipstick tube was slightly warped, but we put some Vaseline on it, and we're just kind of working it around while it's still out of the car. I mean, you don't want it loose. Obviously you want it to seal, but you don't want it so tight that once you get in the car you can't get the damn thing in there.
It does good there. It pops whenever it gets about halfway in. It pops and it goes on in.
Awesome. So I think we're good on that.
Yeah.
Also, he drilled and tapped, Dave at Wheels Up Racing, he drilled and tapped our vent here for our little push lock fitting. Right now I don't have an overflow can, so we're just going to run a piece of line on it, but the plan is, hopefully before we go back to the track, we'll get us an overflow can to put it either under the transmission. I'd like to have one mounted up above it where any fluid it pukes out can run right back down into the transmission, but that might not be possible the way we have things set up in the engine bay right now. So I might just get just your regular puke tank that mounts underneath the transmission here, and just holds any overflow, and then, you know, you can drain it out and just top your trans off later. But yep, we're fixing to stick this bad boy up in here. Ray's excited. You look excited, Ray. Bell housing's bolted up, guys. We're gonna have to go get some longer torque converter bolts and some washers, because what we're looking at is about, what do we say, about a 1/4 inch. We got about a 1/4 inch gap, yeah, in the between the torque converter and the flex plate, and we need like 1/8 of an inch. So we're gonna have to go get some longer bolts and some washers so we can space the torque converter properly, so we don't wreck the front pump on this brand new transmission. Ray, why is there water all over this jack? Where is water coming from? Oh no. Oh no, dude.
Heater hose.
We done fucked that heater hose up. Alright guys, so what happened was, when we were trying to pull the push the transmission up with the transmission jack, the top of the dipstick tube got into the bottom heater hose, and I think it's cut the heater hose, and we're dripping water down. That's not a big deal. I'll just have to move these coil packs, move some wiring out of the way, and probably cut some off and shove it back. I think I've got enough extra length in my heater hoses to be able to do that, so that's not a big deal. What we're doing down here right now is, if I'm being honest, we're just kind of screwing off. We've never had a top bell housing bolt in this thing, because we've never had a bell housing that allowed us to use it. Well, normally you just reach up from the top to put that top middle bell housing bolt in a LS, but because of the Holly high ram and all the fuel lines back there, I can't get to it. So we're just kind of dicking off down here, and Ray's trying to fish that top bolt in from the bottom just to see if he can do it. We're kind of just burning time now, but what I'm about to do is measure for my drive shaft. See if I can get a little light on here. So it's pretty simple. PST, what they tell you to do is measure from the flat face of your yoke back there on your rear end, and you're just going to measure from there to the seal face on the back of your transmission here, and send them that measurement along with for the drive shaft we're getting. Send them $560, and they'll build you a damn aluminum drive shaft that's meant to hold 1,200 horsepower. So that's what we're about to do here in a second, as soon as we get done playing around. Guys, the original plan here was, I was really hoping not to put this video out until this was finished and everything was put in the car. Unfortunately, due to delays on some parts, that's not going to happen, and I've tried to keep you guys kind of in the loop with pictures on Instagram and Facebook and places like that, but I'm getting a bunch of questions. So what I've decided to do is just go ahead and, you know, give you this video as an update, kind of show you where I'm at with everything and what we're waiting on. So the good news is our new drive shaft is here, and guys, PST was on the ball with this. I ordered this drive shaft about 2 days after I made the first part of this video, and 4 days later it was on my doorstep. So I decided to go ahead and put it in, and you can see right here, this is a 3.5 inch aluminum drive shaft. Now they rate this at 1,200 horsepower, but when I spoke to them on the phone, they said they've got guys around the same weight, you know, making in excess of 1,500 horsepower on this drive shaft. So I don't think I'll ever have to upgrade this. So what we got 3.5 inch aluminum, thick wall aluminum. We went with the upgraded strange billet yoke there, and that was at the advice. I actually ordered it originally without the billet yoke, and they called me and they were like, hey, you know, how much horsepower are you going to be making? Are you going to be using a Transbrake? And when I told them, they said we need to upgrade this. So that was an extra, I think, $175 upgrade or $200 upgrade, something like that. But you know, it fits perfect. Gave them my measurements. Everything's great. Now it is going to, you know, once we get the cross member in, it's going to change where it's located a little. Also, the transmission is going to need to go over that way a little bit. But overall, it looks like it's going to fit great. Now, one of the other questions I was asked was what my measurements were on this drive shaft. Guys, I don't want to give you those measurements. You need to measure what you need. And the reason I'm saying this is because I gave out the measurements when we built the DR Nova. I gave out the measurements on that drive shaft, and I had 2 different guys come back raising hell because they didn't freaking measure. They thought because they were using a similar setup that they could use the same length drive shaft. Lots of things can affect your drive shaft length, guys. Your engine mounts, you know, how far you've got the engine mounted forward or back. Obviously that affects it. Manufacturing tolerances in the vehicle itself. If you've lowered the car, the rear end may no longer be centered in the rear wheel well, and you know that can cause you to need a slightly longer or shorter drive shaft depending on which way it goes. So I'm not telling you my measurements because I don't want some jackass coming back, you know, a year from now and being like, hey man, you gave me the wrong measurements. Guys, if you're going to order a drive shaft, put your transmission in, put your rear end in, get it at ride height, and freaking measure it. That's all I can tell you to do. And PST makes it real easy. They just have you measure from your seal flange here, so right here from the tail of the transmission, and measure it to the flange on your pinion yoke back there. Give them that measurement. They do the calculations to figure out how much to cut out for your yoke and all that. It's real simple, guys. But anyway, the drive shaft is in. We are still waiting on the UMI cross member, and you know, this is not knocking UMI. They straight up told me 3 weeks ago when I originally ordered my cross member, it was going to be about 5 weeks. Now they said 6 weeks. Now I'm going to tell you right now, guys, they are really busy at UMI, and anytime I've ordered anything from UMI, they've always gave me, you know, like a really long time frame like that, but usually I get it several weeks ahead of that, and that's kind of what I was hoping would happen here. But here we are at week 3, and I still haven't got my cross member, my subframe connectors, or anything else I ordered yet. So I'm guessing they're just really busy, guys, and you know, it'll get here when it gets here. Until then, this car's stuck on jack stands, and I'm using the time, since, you know, this time of year I don't have a whole lot of time outside of work anyway. I'm taking advantage of that, and you know, every night after work I've been out here doing stuff, which brings me to the next thing. We got our transmission cooler relocated. If you guys remember, it used to be right here where the catalytic converter would normally go. You can still see the holes. I'm going to throw some silicone in those holes, but you know, you can still see the holes where we did have it mounted here. We went ahead and ran new transmission lines, and what I did, we used soft lines from the transmission to right here, and then we used aluminum hard line, and I bent the aluminum hard lines to contour to the shape of the car. So it goes down, goes here, goes around, goes up like that, and it comes out back there by the cooler. I'll get back there in just a second, but I really can't give you guys a good shot, but the lines came out great. And I used hard lines for 2 reasons. Number one, because the hard lines are hard. You don't have to secure it you know, with as many clamps to hold it here. You just don't need as many. When you do soft lines, you got to put clamps a lot more often because, you know, they're sagging, they move around. Don't have to do that with hard lines. Also, with the aluminum hard line, you also get a little bit more heat dissipation. You know, there's air moving under the car. I realize it's not much, probably enough to, you know, amount to anything, but it is a little bit of additional cooling. So then we go to the back of the car here, and underneath the rear bumper is where our cooler is now mounted. You guys that have been around a while might remember this is where I wanted to put it in the first place. I am kind of worried about it being back here. If the car wheelies, you know, possibly the cooler hitting the track. We'll just have to kind of see how that goes. If that presents a problem, then we may end up making some kind of bracket to move this cooler maybe up here under the fuel tank, instead of being down here so low. But for now, we're going to try it and see how it works. So you can see our hard lines right here where they came over the axle, and they come to right here. Now I have not mounted them at the back yet. They're actually going to be up a little more and mounted to the subframe just like that. Then here's our temperature switch for our fan to turn it on and off. We've already wired all that. We got our, from the soft lines to the cooler, we just got small sections of PTFE hard or soft line here. I've still got to do my ground. There's actually already a little hole right here in the subframe, so all I'm going to do is take and, you know, clean this off to bare metal, and then we'll screw our ground in right there, and that'll all be done. Should keep the car, or keep the transmission pretty cool back here. We've got a pretty good gap. I can put my hand between the cooler and the bottom of the car there. I don't know if you can see that. I know my buddy Jeff was like, hey man, you need to space that. And it was just an optical illusion. In a picture I had posted, it looks like this thing's mounted directly to the bottom of the car, but the brackets here actually space it a little bit. And then if you look in there, I've actually put nuts in here to space it even more. So like I said, I can get my hand in here between the cooler and the car. There's plenty of room there to pull air through. If you look from the back of the car here, like this is about ride height, and you can kind of see it right there. Now, here's a big thing, guys. I am using a Holley HP engine management system, and one of the downfalls of the Holley HP is, you know, just like a Holley Terminator, it's only got 4 ins, 4 outs. But unlike the Terminator, it's only got 2 negative outs, and then 2 of the outs are positive only. So I actually had to do some rewiring because I was already using my negative outs, and I'm not going to get too technical about it, but basically I had to come back here to our fuse block that we had used before, and some of our stuff we had set up for ground outputs, and I had to, you know, pull the wires over. I had to redo this a little bit. It wasn't a big deal, but I had to make some of these 12-volt trigger instead of ground trigger. One of those things was the auxiliary fuel pumps that we have in our, right, most of you guys know about this, some might not. Our auxiliary fuel pumps that we have in our radium surge tank over here. Previously, we had the ECU doing a ground trigger to activate the auxiliary pumps. Well, we needed that ground trigger for the Transbrake, so I had to rewire them to use a 12-volt trigger instead, and that's all wired up. Something else previously is I had a toggle switch to turn on my transcooler fan, and I just started thinking about it, and I was like, guys, that's just way too much bullshit. Like, I need to just wire it to the ignition. So I had to redo the transcooler circuit too, and make it 12-volt trigger so that I could just wire it into my my ignition switch. So now the transcooler will just turn on anytime I have the ignition on, and I don't have to worry about, you know, did I leave it on or did I turn it off, because that was also draining my battery too when I would forget to turn that circuit off and leave the car sitting for a long time. So that's all taken care of. All the wiring's done here. Just about all the wiring is done here. We're using our old nitrous relay, solid state relay here. That is now our Transbrake relay, and I've already wired that in as such. We just got to drop that wire down to our Transbrake on the side of the transmission. And I also did some rewiring in the car. You guys might remember I used to have this guy with the phone cord. You know, it was just kind of crammed in the steering wheel back here, and that's what I used to use to activate my two-step. Well, I didn't like the cord hanging down, so I ended up making new brackets. This is our Transbrake switch now. This is our bump slash scramble button. If the Transbrake is active, then this is a bump button. If the Transbrake is not active, then this automatically becomes a scramble button in the Holley software. So we went ahead and set that up. So I've got those buttons now, and I no longer have a cord hanging from my steering wheel. So that's pretty awesome. Don't have to deal with that anymore. So that's all wired up. The Transbrake wire is already ran. I still have to run the bump wire and tie it into the Holly up here under the hood. But I've already run the wire. I just haven't passed it through the firewall yet. So yeah, that's all good, guys. That's where we're at. Pretty much all we're waiting on is our cross member. Once the cross member gets here, we can put it on. We can go ahead and fill the transmission up with fluid. Dave over at Wheels Up Racing, he wants me to do a pressure test on the transmission to make sure I'm getting the pressure, you know, before I race the thing, make sure it's making the pressure that he wants it to make. So we're going to do that, and then we should be good to go racing, guys. Now there is one other thing that I need to do to this transmission. I do need to tap the pan here somewhere for a temp sender, and you know, we're not going to use a temperature gauge. We're probably going to get a low dollar motorsport temperature sending unit and just tie it into the Holly dash so we can data log it. So I haven't decided where to put the sensor yet. I'm kind of waiting until the cross member gets here, because what I really want to do, we have our Transbrake output right here where the kick down used to plug in on the Turbo 400. This has got the internal billet Transbrake, so there's no solenoid on the outside. It's in the pan, and you just hook your activation wire right here. So what I would like to do, I'm thinking, is possibly put a temp sender right here on the back of the pan, but I don't know how the cross member might interfere with that. So I don't want to drill any holes in the pan until the cross member gets here. I've also thought about just putting it right here, because if I put it right here on the side, then you know, I could just run the wires together, plug that one in, then have the other one just come right here instead of having to wrap a wire around the back. But my thought about putting it in the back of the pan is, even under acceleration, you know, I would be sure that sending unit has always got fluid around it, whereas if I put it up here, you know, it might wash the fluid away and give a false reading during a pass or something as to, you know, the heat of the transmission. So that's something I've got to do, guys. That's not a big deal. We'll just drop the pan and do that once the cross member gets here. I mean, that's, you know, that's not going to take us but 30 minutes to drop this pan and drill it and tap it and everything. I don't remember if I said it earlier in the video, but we did get some washers, some 1/8 inch thick fender washers, and we use those to get our spacing correct on our torque converter. So it should still, you know, it'll be fully engaged in the pump and everything. So yeah, guys, getting kind of excited. You know, once we get this cross member in, we're probably, what I see coming is we're most likely going to be maxing out these turbos here. I don't think these turbos are probably good for much over maybe 900 wheel horsepower. So I don't know at what boost level that's going to occur. I know we have hit 22 PSI with them a couple times and hit boost cut, because I've got the boost cut set at 22 right now. But as soon as we get this transmission checked out, make sure it's going to hold, make sure the torque converter is doing what it's supposed to do, I fully intend to max out these turbos on this car and see exactly what they'll do. Hopefully they'll do enough to get us into the you know, at least the high fives. I'd like to creep down close to the mid fives, but you know, with full interior, this is a full weight car, guys. I'm not really sure if we're gonna have enough juice to do that with the current setup, but I do intend to find out. But that's where we're at, guys. There's your update. If you're not following us on Instagram at The Bad Luck Garage, make sure you do that if you have an Instagram account, because I've been posting a lot of pictures and little video clips and stuff there to try to keep you guys in the loop while we're waiting on parts. So I hope to have another video out real soon, putting the cross member in and trying out the Transbrake and everything. But until then, thanks for watching. Now get out in the garage, get something done, and I'll see you next time here on Bad Luck Garage.